So as I've said, this is our peer-to-peer fundraising primer, talking about things that some of experienced writers have learned what works and sometimes what doesn't in peer-to-peer fundraising. So first off, many of you know me already. I've been on the Phoenix Spikes board, former executive director. I've done 7, either Ken and Garvey or Raise and Rides through the years. My day job, I work for Arlington County as active transportation director, and have raised between $2,500 to $10,000 in each of the years I've done it, with some surprising success. So I will talk about things that have worked for me. And as I mentioned as well, Michael, ambassador for World Bicycle Relief, a veteran of 10 fundraising peer-to-peer events, and also has raised more than $57,000 across those, including one that's currently going on at a rate of 7,620 as of the other night when we talked. So we'll hear more about his experiences and what kind of techniques and strategies he uses to make his event successful. Again, just briefly, peer-to-peer fundraising is a multi-tiered approach to crowdsourcing, or crowdfunding as we call it, where people sign up, tap into their individual networks, and ask for donations one-to-one. We tend not to ask for sponsors in this thing and other kinds of fundraising, but it helps us expand our donor base and get people to use their own networks, to feed other revenue into organizations. So we're not going back and asking the same people all the time. With Phoenix Bikes, this is part of our big 3 strategy. We also have a gala that has been the Maker's Balls, and now we've rebranded the Bikes and Bow Ties. We have this peer-to-peer fundraising event, and then the treasure hunt / fun ride is a more participatory kind of event that we do. We added this in 2014 to sort of expand the kind of portfolio of different kinds of fundraising that we have to do. On the right, you'll see a table that sort of shows the growth of the organization, or this event, over the last 8 years that we've been doing it. Again, the last 2 during the pandemic, it has grown exponentially, tripling in the amount that we raised. We've repeated that 2 years in a row now, and so we're coming back for a third swing and seeing if we can't do it again with a $75,000 goal of fundraising this year. So why do people give in peer-to-peer campaigns? Most of that, again, like you said, you're tapping into your personal networks, and people really want to help you with your goal. It does make them feel good. We've seen this time and time again. People like to be part of successful things, and particularly doing good. And so this is what motivates them to do it. So appealing to that of what you think is doing good for this kind of motivates people to donate. And they also want to know that their money actually makes a difference. And for fundraising for smaller organizations like Phoenix Bikes, I've found that we can honestly say that all of the money goes directly to the mission of the organization. A lot of times, I like to say, bigger organizations and bigger causes, it's kind of nebulous. You're not really sure. Personally, I cite things like fundraising for fighting kind of diseases and those sort of things. I always never really sure, what the money really does for that. And it also goes a lot of times into the administration of these big, giant fundraising apparatuses. This is still very small. And then, like I said, all the money goes straight to the organization. So strategies that I've found have work. Again, people wanting to help you, you have to make it personal. You have to find something about the Phoenix Bikes mission to tell people that this is why you're doing, this particular event to support this particular organization. And it could be anything. It could be the educational component. It could be the environmental component. It could be the transportation component. Whatever resonates with you is really what you should be leading with in your appeals to people to donate to your cause. I also like to tell people it's a numbers game. So don't be shy about casting a wide net and sending a request for donations to people that you may not have really tight personal relationships with. They could be casual relations. They could be people that you worked with several years ago and you really haven't talked to that much. But don't be afraid to really push your aspirational goals. When reaching out to folks, I've been, very pleased with the response I've gotten, again, going through my inbox and clicking on the names of people, adding them as a blind carbon copy in there, even though I may not have talked to them in quite a while. So I said, make it personal in your appeals. The other part of this key is not taking it personal when people say no. And most of the people, quite frankly, are going to say no. We all get hit up for things all the time. We can't possibly reply to them all or donate to them all. So people will pick and choose. And you really don't know, necessarily what people are going through. So, if people don't respond or don't ignore you, it's fine. Don't get upset about it. Again, you can't worry about those sorts of things, which is all the more reason to cast a wide net. So if you ask 3 people and one gives and the other 2 don't, you most likely are going to be disappointed. So don't take it personal. Like I said, just be prepared though that most of the people really aren't going to respond to your ask. The other thing I like to tell people is I've been doing this, that I am surprised every single year, mostly in a good way, of who does respond. So even though most people don't, a lot of those casual people who many have become regular donors year after year, really surprised me in A, that they responded at all, and B, oftentimes in the amounts. So again, and I've asked them, I follow up and said, I really appreciate it, but I'm curious, why did you give? And they just say they love the mission of Phoenix Bikes. They'd kind of heard about it, but they're really happy that I'm doing this and want to support. The other thing that you get surprised sometimes in a negative way, again, is people that you really think are going to do it. These are sure things. They love biking. They do this all the time. This is a natural, and then they don't. So again, going back to my previous slide, don't get upset about it. But sometimes you think this is really up this person's alley and they're going to support, and then they don't. So you will get some of those as well. I promise you that. My 2 rules of success are always, you got to be following up. You get that ask out early, then you have to follow it up later. And then with others that I think that I really do think they would be interested in, I'll follow up a 3rd time with a personal follow-up to do that. So following up is key to success. And then of course, thanking people after the fact and letting them know that you really appreciate their support. I also usually just use emails from most of my ask, and I support it with some social media posts, but for me, the direct ask to people via email has been by far the most successful tool that I've used in all of my fundraising. So I have this question slide. I'm going to stop sharing right now, but like I said, I'd like to give Michael plenty of time to do his presentation, and then we can take questions at the end. So Michael, are you ready to take it?
I am.
Thank you. So,
yep. So there we go. Do you guys see my wallpaper?
Yep.
All right. You can probably tell I like bicycling a little bit. All right. So here we go. So just a little bit about me. I work for a company called Gartner, and this is something we do. It's called a me slide, but you always wonder, like, who is this person? So I'm married. My wife and son have a 12-year-old boy that we're crazy about. Squirrel is, I'm kind of ADHD, and I used to beat myself up a lot. Now I kind of learned to really laugh at myself. And I'm really into bicycling. I've been into road cycling for quite a while. I just recently took up mountain biking, which is really fun. And I'm a World Bicycle Relief Ambassador. And I know that I'm talking about it here, but this is something I tell everyone whenever I do any kind of workshop for any kind of group. This is what I talk about. And I don't know what it is. I have a boy. I don't know what it is about girls in developing countries, but I just find it really abhorrent that there's a whole segment of of the world population that has no shot at all. But you give them an education, suddenly they have all these opportunities. And I'm just absolutely like dedicated so much of my life to doing everything I can to give people opportunity. And so this is, what kind of drives me with World Bicycle Relief. My son and I are avid skiers. We usually have season tickets to Snowshoe in West Virginia. We go to Nag's Head every summer, and we're going in a couple weeks and cannot wait. Live in Virginia, Air Force brat, born in England. I'm a semi-professional photographer, and if you stay at the Mayflower or the JW Marriott on 14th, my picture's hanging on the walls. And I work for this awesome company called Gartner, and I'm an executive partner where I get to, largely what I do is I inspire people to be better bosses. So a little bit about me, if you're wondering. Let me tell you about like my bike history. So it was Thanksgiving 1992, I don't look very old, but I feel like this makes me kind of old. My brother comes home and he brings a VHS tape. He had done this ride called Ride the Rockies in Colorado. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, back in the day, they had a company, they would have a camera and a film crew, and they'd put together a video, and then they would sell it to people of, the recap of the ride. So he comes in, he pops this in the VHS, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's like 400 or 500 miles in the Rocky Mountains. I'm like, you mean normal people do this, like non-professional cyclists? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that is insane. So that was that Thanksgiving. That Christmas, a month or two later, he gives me his old bicycle. He says, hey, why don't you ride the Rockies with me? So I did it in 1993. I totally sucked. I had no idea what to do. This is pre-interwebs. Like, I don't know how to train. I rode on the W&OD trail every day, which is slightly just a little different than, riding in the Rocky Mountains. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to do it again. And then 94, it was awesome. 95, it was awesome. 96, it was great. The same time I was I would do rides, the MS 150. And that, I remember the very first time I did it, my goal was like $1,000. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to raise $1,000? And I remember the stress I felt over this. So anyway, I took an 18-year gap. I put on 80 pounds. I took off 80 pounds. And I did this ride with a neighbor of mine, and we did 50 miles, and we averaged 18 miles an hour. And I thought, God, maybe I could do Ride the Rockies again, because as you can see, I have these posters on my wall from the rides. And I remember talking to my wife saying, I think maybe I could do Ride the Rockies again. Now I know it's not, it's vacation time, and I know it's not cheap to fly to Colorado. And she's like, be quiet. She was, you absolutely need to do this. So I went out there, and the very first day was 100 miles of 10,000 feet of climbing. And long story short, it's a hellish day, and I'm climbing Berthoud Pass, which is a hard pass. And we get caught in a snowstorm, and I start crying, like ugly face crying, like just whatever. And it wasn't that I was miserable. It was that it was this kind of realization that, 18 months ago, I struggled to bend over to put my socks on, right? And now I'm climbing Berthoud Pass in a freaking snowstorm. And I felt I'm back. So that was that. But then what happened is it felt a little, I wanted to do it again, right? But this is more than just me. And I'm like, what can I do? I want to make this worthwhile. I want to make this ride mean something. And I did, I kind of looked at causes, and I learned about World Bicycle Relief, and I absolutely fell in love. And so I created a team the first year. Our goal was to raise $1,340. I ended up raising $2,300. Overall, since 2013, I've raised $57,000, and this year I'm at $7,620. So that's a little bit about me, just to give context. So first of all, start with why, not what or how. So it's always about changing lives. So if you think about World Bicycle Relief, let me tell you about the what and how, right? Is they make and distribute bicycles to people in developing countries, mostly Africa. Their bikes go to 3 categories of people. They go to students, that's where most of their bikes go. And of those, 70% go to girls. They go to healthcare workers, and they go to entrepreneurs, and they do it through microloans. I could say that, right? Like, okay, this is what they do. That's not inspiring. But this is what I say. I say, look, to you and me, distance is, we don't really think about it, right? If we're driving to a store and it's closed and we have to drive 5 miles down the road, so it's inconvenient, but we don't think about distance. But in developing countries where people don't own cars and there's no public transportation, people spend most of their awake life walking. And if you're a student and you have to walk 10 kilometers to school and then 10 kilometers home, that's not inconsequential. That cuts into your ability to study. That cuts into your ability to just play and be a kid, right? That affects you in so many different ways. And so this distance is this devastating barrier that gets in the way of people being able to live their full lives. But when you give them a bicycle, you completely change the equation, and they can do whatever they want to do. Right? So when I talk about World Bicycle Relief, I don't talk about bikes, I talk about people, right? And I talk about how distance is a barrier, and bicycles can fix that. So that's the the why for me. So let me ask you, what are some of the Phoenix Bikes whys? We know what they do, right? They kind of get bikes, you fix them up, and you can resell them, and get kids on bikes. But so what? What's the why to this? You can unmute because it's easier to hear you guys. And by the way, in my workshops at Gartner, I always tell people that I can and will wait you out, so we could just awkwardly stare at the monitor for a couple of minutes, but I'm just going to be quiet till people start talking. So go at it.
Hi, it's Heather. I'll jump in and share that I am passionate about Phoenix Bikes because I love that they encourage young people to explore bicycling, both the mechanics and the riding aspects.
That's cool. And so that's awesome. So when a kid has a bike, why is that good? And when they know the mechanics of a bike, why is that good?
Bicycling equals fun and freedom.
Ooh. And is what other ways can they experience freedom, or is there something unique about a bike that you can only get on a bike?
Well, I personally feel there's something unique on a bike that you can only get on a bike, but I also like the teaching component, empowering young people to learn about bicycles and be able to not only fix their own bikes, but help other people fix theirs. That's why I feel like the mechanics side of it is really interesting too. Anybody can kind of hop on a bike and ride it, but knowing how it works and how to fix it, I think is empowering.
I love it. So who else wants to share kind of what are some of the whys of Phoenix Bikes? And Heather, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
I'll go. I would say, I took this job with Phoenix because for so many reasons, but I just thought it was, I think when I think of middle school and high school years, they're just years when each of us were sort of figuring ourselves out and trying to gain confidence, kind of figure out what we were good at. And for a lot of students, they might not be super great students in school, but they're really good working with their hands. And I find that Phoenix is just a place where they thrive, where they feel confident, they're getting good at something, and they're just building the skill set that they just have never, even thought about or kind of had an opportunity to explore before. So it's just a really fun environment to see students
So Emily, that just really
gaining a sense of self, I guess, through bikes. And to the question of freedom earlier, I always think about the fact that most of our students do not have the ability to drive. They're not even eligible for their licenses yet. So a bike is just such a great way to get around town, get to see friends, go to 7-Eleven. We see kids, it just opens up possibilities for where they can go once they get a bike.
Yep. So Emily, I absolutely love that. Like what you said touched me, right? That you have these kids that may not be doing well in school and they may not think much of themselves, but you give them confidence, right? And then that can have such an impact on their lives and where they're going. It's like, I want to help a kid have confidence, right? That's fantastic. See, that's the thing I think moves people, not the what you do, but the why. Is, so with Heather and Emily, we give them a sense of freedom. We give them a sense of adventure. We allow them to be, we're helping allow kids enjoy being kids, right? It's important to be a kid, and we help give them confidence in an area where they're unsure and they're figuring out their way, teaching kids that they can work with their hands and that there's something they could do that's really good. That to me is a lot more compelling than, we take used bikes and we fix them up and then we give them to people or sell them to people, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But what you just said, I find to be so much more compelling. I don't know about you guys, but that why is really good. Something from the Phoenix Bike website is, it's more than just, sport. It's also a means of social justice, providing access to bicycles can have significant positive economic and health impacts for all, right? That's another kind of good why. I wish there was more of that on the website. That speaks to me. So I'll tell you kind of a little bit about me. I make it personal. So as I said, they do education, healthcare, economic development. I don't really focus on healthcare. I talk about education. Why? Because that speaks to me. As I said, something about girls, empowering girls. I do not know why this is it, but I am just all there. And so even though I could say, and they do this, and they do this, and they do this, I don't need to. I'm just going to talk about what speaks to me. I'm going to only tell them about one thing. I'm not going to say to them, you know, by the way, this is the only thing they do and lie. I'm just say, this is what they do. Just not mentioning all the other things they do, right? If you have photos where you're engaged with the organization on site, it can be powerful. Luckily for Phoenix Spikes, Arlington is a tiny bit closer than Lusaka, Zambia. But oh my gosh, you get to go there and see the people. It makes it that much more personal. It's that much more powerful. So develop stories, right? So there's this certain art and science to storytelling. But every story has to have a monster. You know, the monster is sometimes a person, but sometimes it's just non-tangible things like time, distance, opportunity, or poverty. So what makes stories compelling is how a hero overcomes the monster and there's a conversion that ensues. So a story about how someone felt trapped and now has endless hope. It's always good, right? You know, a story about a kid who may feel like, I'm just not good at anything. I just want to get through school and then figure it out. And like suddenly he finds out he's really good with his hands and he wants to be a mechanic and maybe even a car mechanic and he's really excited. That's, you know, that's a great story of overcoming the monster. I don't know if Phoenix Bike has YouTube videos, but there's, you know, a World Bicycle Relief has a whole bunch of them. This one, the Power of Bicycles, I've seen it dozens of times because I use it in workshops, and every single time I get a tear in my eye. It's 2 minutes, and it's about a girl. Her name's Tamara, and you know, she's an orphan and she lives with her grandma. And you know, she used to have to wake up extra early, and the walk to school took forever, and she'd get to school exhausted, and her grades suffered. But then she got a bike, and her, you know, she's just so much happier, and she's able to get to school refreshed, and she gets all her homework done, and she gets to actually play. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to be that guy. I got her a bicycle, right? So good videos can do things. This isn't as much storytelling, but this is part of my campaign, right? It's kind of what I said. One bicycle can radically change the life. To most of us, distance is inconvenience, you know, easily overcome by a car. But developing countries, distance is a devastating barrier that keeps kids from getting to school, health, whatever. So do you notice that I said devastating barrier when I spoke to you earlier? You kind of start getting this language that you find it's comfortable with you and you use it a lot because it is, right? So let's talk, any questions so far? We talked about things like what's the why and telling stories, power of a picture and videos. Any thoughts, comments, or questions? I'm looking at your videos. I'm not seeing any head movements one way or another, but all right, let's keep going. So let's talk about number strategies. So get numbers that equate to something tangible, such as, you know, X amount of dollars is enough to pay for this. So having a base number, you know, so I would suggest having a base number that's a little bit of a stretch. If you ask for 20 bucks and someone gives you 20 bucks, you may miss out on a much larger donation, right? So what I say is that, hey, a bike is only $165. So any amount you give will quickly add up to radically changing someone's life, right? So, so I say it so people don't feel too much pressure to give, you know, beyond their means. But I will tell you that most of my donations are at least $165, and it's often 165 or twice that amount. It used to be 147, which I liked more, but inflation, I don't feel bad fudging it a little bit, you know, make it a, you know, a dollar or two more or less to make it an odd number. Because if you say $100 buys this, $100 is too round of a number, right? So if you have an unusual number, you know, and they say, why this number? You've already intrigued them. They're wondering, like, why is this number meaningful? So my current goal is $82,500, and that equates to 500 lives changed. And notice I say 500 lives changed, not 500 bicycles, right? Same thing, but to me, it's not about the bike. It's about the lives changed. That's the why. So, so if there is like a round number, make it a little off. If it's 100, make it 97, make it 103, just enough to pique people's curiosity because they're so used to whole numbers. So here are some Phoenix Bikes numbers. $18 gets a helmet. $50, $57 is a cost of basic tool set for students for earn a bike. $249, mobile repair stand used for working offsite to teach youth classes, offer free bike safety checks, and use in mobile repair fleets, right? So depending, like when I'm now older, I don't feel old. I hate that I don't feel old, but most of my friends can easily write checks for $167. When I was younger, most of my friends did not have that. So, if I were younger, maybe I'd pick that $57 number, but just these odd numbers really, they mean something, right? And then what they realize is that I'm not just giving some amount of money to some generic organization. It's like, I am buying a tool set for students for Earn a Bike. Like, I'm going to help a student. I'm going to be that person, right? And so it makes it so much more connect the dots. I'm impacting a life versus I'm giving a round number. Make sense, everybody? Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so I want to talk about just integrity, but like not in the normal sense of like you're doing the right thing. But if you ask my extended family, neighbors, friends, colleagues, clients to describe me, they'll tell you that I love bicycles. It's something that makes me interesting, and they like to hear stories about some of my epic rides. So if I were to fundraise to help stop human trafficking, address climate change, help the Ukrainians prevent democratic backslide, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I wouldn't. These are all things I really care about, but I wouldn't be as successful because it's not part of my core identity of how people know me. So if people know you as a bicyclist and you're raising money for bicycles, it just clicks and people get it and they want to help you even more. One thing to do is consider identifying the cause in your public persona. My email signature in Gmail has World Bicycle Relief, like, hey, I'm an ambassador. Click here to donate. Now, very few people click on this, but it's always present. So when I ask, they go, oh yeah, that's that cause he keeps talking about, right? So again, I work for this company called Gartner. This is actually one of the Gartner images they have that you can put in LinkedIn. It's a bicycle. And you can see it says, I'm a senior executive partner at Gartner, former CIO, leading, corporations and multiple international organizations. And then I have World Bicycle Relief Ambassador Volunteer, right? So it's just, you look at me on LinkedIn, one of the first things you see. In Strava, Michael O'Brien, World Bicycle Relief Ambassador, right? So it's just every way you can possibly know me, that this is important to me. And so people aren't going to just randomly give to me, but then when I ask, it's not some weird thing. They're like, oh yeah, that's that thing that it's just part of who you are. So when I talk about integrity, it's not like doing the right thing, which obviously you should do, but it's more like, is it core to who you are? All right, so don't be apologetic. As humans, we seek meaning and purpose in our lives. It's just genetic that people want to have a greater sense of purpose and meaning in their life. So, and those that do are more joy-filled and peaceful. So when you have a cause that you're passionate about and you can effectively communicate how it changes lives, you're giving people the opportunity to grow a greater sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. So you are literally doing them a favor, right? So for them, it's a twofer. They feel good because they're helping you, but they're also helping a cause. So so don't be apologetic. Just realize you're doing them a favor. Consider recruiting other riders, fundraisers. I've started several teams. It's raised a lot of money. One of my riders I've recruited, he now pays me. He's raised $16,000 this year. So just don't think about asking money, but if there's another cyclist, like try to get them. All right, so initial ask, go through all your email addresses, address books, export them all into an Excel sheet. And you want at least a person's name and their email address. And then you want to add a column for the company they work for and populate it only if they work for a fairly large company, right? So, and then you want to add one more column called match, and you'll populate this with a yes or no. So then what you do for these big companies is you do a search for like Microsoft employee charity matching, Lockheed employee charity matching, see if they have a matching program, right? And if they do why. And that's going to be important because, you get your people to double their donation. So if you work for a company that matches, you can strive to cultivate, giving community among your workmates. So in this year, $1,607 of dollars of what I've raised, so 21% is from company matching donations. And then what I do is I give them an option to go, to donate directly to World Bicycle Relief or do my GoFundMe. And if they do GoFundMe, then I can use my company matching and double their donation. So I pocket the money, but then I make a donation and all that. And then, so anyway, and if you do work for company matches, take screenshots of exactly how to do it so you can send people. And then, so the final thing is create another field and categorize each person as an A or B, and then fill that out based off of their ability to give. Factor in their, their employee matching program when doing this, and then create a general ask email. So what you do is you create a general ask email and blast it to your B list friends. Just whatever. One of the people I sent the blast was my old college roommate who I haven't spoken to in forever. And he donates $500 every year, and he works for Apple, and it's matched, so I get $1,000 from it, right? And then create a template for your A-list asks, but personalize them, not just in the salutation, but contextualize it in a way that you're writing directly to them. They have a goal date, the date of the big ride, and communicate that you want to hit your goal and target date. Then finally, go back to the A-list people who haven't donated yet and say, oh my gosh, the ride's in a week. I could really use your help. And they're almost done. Hope this isn't going too long. Thank you notes. They're just, not only are they polite and proper, but they can be major tools in cultivating a giving community. So I always express my personal gratitude, but also try to get to, them to focus on what they've done. Maybe send a YouTube video just to say, hey, I just want you to think for a minute that, you're now a hero to someone you've never met. You've been the answer to some parent's prayer that their child can have an opportunity they didn't have, right? You have radically changed the life of someone else. And I hope you can just take time to truly appreciate what you've done. So make people feel good about what they did. Makes it easier for them to give again in the future. And I tend to have a core group, and I go back every year, and I don't think they dread my ask. I think they look forward to it, right? Because they're like, wow, I get to do something good again. I get to feel good about myself. So thank you note ideas. Sometimes I send an email. Sometimes I get custom cardstock with picture from the ride, or just basic cardstock. Some years I'll just record a video during the ride to my biggest donors and just say, hey, thank you so much. This is an example of one of my thank you letters, right? I hope you can take time today to reflect on what you've done. There's so many problems where solutions are highly complex, requiring a multi-pronged approach, but solving the problem of distance is really simple. Giving a person a bike, giving them 3 to 6 additional hours in a day. For students, this is et cetera, right? So just get them to feel good about themselves. I think I have two more. But anyway, thinking long-term, it feels great. I mean, really, really, really good to be a huge fundraiser for an organization. With my friends' help, I've helped radically change the lives of over 375 people. So other than being a good husband and father, this is part of who I am, right? And it gives me a huge sense of personal purpose. So you may want to think about this okay, I'm just doing this for this year, but you may want to think about no, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be known for now. This is something where I want to just have a long-term impact. So it's totally fine to look at this as a one and done, but you feel really awesome about yourself if this is something that's long-term. It's my last slide. If you do this more than once, update your list with each person's giving amount as well as their giving potential. So someone that you thought was an A gives you $10, make them a B. A B who gave you $200, make them an A. And if you plan on fundraising the following year, or even if you don't, just consider sending a personalized mid-year non-ask email. Hey, just random, but I'm just so appreciative of what you did. Thanks so much. So we'll make this deck available. But those are some of the some of the things I've learned over the last year to be effective in fundraising.